They've got a considerable arsenal. They put a lot of money into the development of hypersonic missiles and other long-term missiles, both for the nuclear weapons program, which has been expanding at a very, very rapid rate, but also into a whole array of different missiles, largely pointed towards a potential conflict around Taiwan. Some of those are no doubt for targets within Taiwan, but an absolute priority of China's missile development has been America. It's been trying to discourage America from getting involved in a fight over Taiwan. It's been trying to warn them against the potential costs of doing so by quite publicly demonstrating that it has the firepower it thinks to hit American bases, whether that is in Guam or elsewhere in the Pacific, and also the missiles that have become known as the carrier killers, missiles specifically developed to take out these carrier groups, aircraft carriers. And in fact, there was some satellite imagery that emerged not so long ago about some of these being tested, some of them development in the desert with models of ships that looked rather like American aircraft carriers. So they will be putting an array of these on display tomorrow and on Wednesday, and almost certainly there'll be military attaches from around the world, but particularly from Washington, poring over these images to look at what has been developed and what is in this fast developing Chinese arsenal. And overall, they've been expanding and modernizing their military at a rate I don't think we've ever seen before in peacetime. And missiles are at the heart of this. And specifically, a large part of the missile development is aimed at the United States. It is aimed at keeping them out of this fight. Now, the US has responded in a number of ways. US planners recognize that their ships, their aircraft carriers, could be highly vulnerable around Taiwan. You recall going back to the beginning of the democratic era in Taiwan, 1996, the Chinese started firing missiles off either end of Taiwan in a bid to try and frighten Taiwanese voters. It didn't frighten them. In fact, they went and voted in even greater numbers for the more China skeptical candidate. But America sent two aircraft carrier groups into the region at that time as a means of deterrence, and it worked pretty well. And China decided back then that they didn't want that to happen again. And that's when they began this program to develop the means to keep the United States out of the area immediately around Taiwan. Drone warfare is the current sort of hot topic. It's where an awful lot of development money is going in the UK, in Europe, in the US. Drones, we're told, are the future. Drones with all sorts of smart capabilities. You'll see some pretty awesome kit going past tomorrow: attack drones, reconnaissance drones, sea drones. What you won't see is, of course, the electronics, the kit, the software that goes in them, the ability under the hood, the extent of the AI that might be built into them, because there's a lot of talk about autonomous drones, about drones you can just kind of put out there and you're not talking to them, because that's a potential vulnerability, because that communications can be intercepted. And if that's intercepted, the drones can be sent elsewhere. But, drones that can do their own thing once they've been released. And so there's a lot of hardware we'll see tomorrow, which I imagine will look pretty awesome, because China is at the cutting edge in the development of drones. But what we won't know so clearly is what's under the bonnet, what software is driving it. And one of the keys to modern warfare, which we don't know whether China's come close to solving this, is the interaction between different spheres. So you've got, whether it's the Navy, the Air Force, drones, intelligence, communications. The key to modern warfare is linking all this together in a way that fights in an effective and winnable way. The US are good at that. China is very unproven. So it will be interesting. We'll be able to tell a lot tomorrow by what's out there. And, it'll be deliberately provocative. It will be designed to send a message to the West, to send a message to America. Xi Jinping's sort of purge of political opponents, one of the biggest targets over the last couple of years has actually been the military. You know, a whole swathe of military leaders have disappeared, as well as a defense secretary, defense minister, and a whole swathe of the leadership of the rocket force, which is nominally sort of in charge of this kid. But no, this is his chance Wednesday to flex his muscles. This is a big nationalist parade. This is him saying, this is a powerful new China. This goes side by side with the message he was given in Tianjin on Tuesday that China wants to create a new world order. It wants to capitalize on the chaos unleashed by Trump and sees China very much as the champion of this new world order. And this display goes hand in hand with that. You know, it's in many ways, the display is something of a fraud because the Chinese Communist Party played no more than a marginal role in the defeat of Japan during the Second World War. Most of the fighting was was by the nationalists who were in a civil war with the communists. The communists Mao was quite happy to sit back and let them do the fighting and become weakened as a result of it. So it's only more recently that the CCP has decided they will requisition this. They will claim it as their own victory. And there's a lot of rewriting of history from Russia as well. But this is his chance to put the strong new China on the map as he sees it, and send what will be quite a chilling message, I imagine, to Washington. We should be very worried generally about China flexing its military muscle and the potential for clashes, not just over Taiwan, but in the South China Sea, elsewhere, where China is asserting its territorial claims much more aggressively. I think Taiwan is intriguing because clearly China would like to take control of Taiwan. I mean, I take the view that its claims for Taiwan are highly dubious, to say the least. But nevertheless, it's central to the Communist Party, to Xi Jinping's project to take control of Taiwan. Whether they would go immediately to a full-scale invasion, or whether you would see a continuation of what some have dubbed the anaconda strategy, slowly squeezing the island by multiple means, whether this be cyber attacks, increasingly aggressive military exercises, an embargo, maybe seizing an outlying island that's currently controlled by Taiwan, and then only going to an invasion as a further down the line is harder to say. I mean, what we can be sure about, because it's become so important to Xi Jinping's project of rejuvenating China, if he was to try and grab Taiwan and fail, that would probably be the end of him and possibly the Chinese Communist Party. So there's an awful lot riding on this, but nevertheless, you build a military force of such formidable strength, and they have the biggest navy already in terms of the sheer number of ships. You know, every ferry now that comes out of the shipbuilding port in China has to be able to carry tanks. You know, these are dual purpose as well. And you ask yourself, historically and in terms of China's ambition, you build a force, an army of these sorts of capabilities, and it seems inevitable that that they're going to be used. And what manner are they used? How will it manifest itself? Will it be Taiwan? Will it be other clashes around the South China Sea? But certainly, when you've had this sort of investment in the modernization and expansion of the military on the sort of vast scale that China has, it is very, very worrying.